The first sign this was going to be a complete disaster came when Ashley Cooper, yes, that Ashley Cooper, the CEO's precious daughter, called me the old security guy in front of the entire executive board. I had just spent 4 hours setting up encrypted communications with NATO officials in Brussels so the company could bid on a $15 million defense contract. The cables were still warm from the classified data transfer. My coffee hadn't even cooled down when she waltzed in with her MBA attitude and said, "Can someone summarize that? He's just security support, right?" I'm Andrew Foster, 47 years old, and I've been the Senior Defense Systems Coordinator for this company for 15 years. That means I've been managing classified contracts since before Ashley could spell Pentagon. Before this job, I spent 8 years in the Navy, working communications and intelligence across 3 continents. I've negotiated deals in German bunkers, Arabic command centers, and Russian diplomatic facilities. I don't wear suits that cost more than my monthly salary. I wear practical shoes I can move in and carry encrypted drives like other people carry car keys. My job is making sure nobody accidentally leaks classified intel or violates federal security protocols that could land the whole company in federal prison. But you'd never know it from how Ashley looked at me like I was some rent-a-cop with a walkie-talkie. Ashley showed up one Monday with designer clothes, zero clearance, and a LinkedIn bio that read like a tech startup fever dream. Disruptive communications strategist, global engagement pioneer, next-gen defense solutions. Her father, Christopher Cooper, the CEO, introduced her like she was the second coming of military innovation. Ashley's going to help us modernize our outreach approach. Translation: Ashley was going to make a mess, and someone, probably me, was going to clean it up before we all ended up in federal court. At our first strategy meeting, Ashley sat at the head of the table and asked why we needed a full-time person just to manage some paperwork for overseas contracts. My knuckles went white around my coffee mug. She'd already streamlined 2 compliance officers, merged 3 security departments into 1 Slack channel, and replaced our 200-page federal protocol manual with a 5-page PDF titled Modern Defense Vibes. I wish I was making that up. When I spoke about operational security, she didn't look up. She scrolled through her phone. When I sent detailed briefings about NATO protocols, she replied with thumbs-up emojis. She once walked past me in the hallway and asked if I was still doing the military thing. I said, "No, I'm doing the thing that keeps you from getting federally indicted." She laughed like I'd told a joke. I hadn't. Look, I get it. I'm not flashy. I don't speak in corporate buzzwords. My last PowerPoint had bullet points and organizational charts, not animated GIFs. But I do speak German, Arabic, Russian, and Mandarin, languages I learned during my Navy service in places where getting the translation wrong could start international incidents. Ashley once called them those old world languages while giggling at her phone. She had no idea that 6 years ago, I had quietly prevented a major security breach involving leaked German submarine specifications that could have compromised NATO operations across the Baltic Sea. The incident never made the papers because I coordinated the response properly, working directly with German naval intelligence and Pentagon security teams to contain the leak before it reached hostile intelligence services. Or that 3 years before that, I spent 2 weeks in a secure facility outside Stuttgart, helping coordinate classified communications during a joint NATO exercise that simulated defending against cyber warfare attacks on military infrastructure. The kind of work that doesn't get mentioned in company newsletters but keeps our allies trusting us with contracts worth hundreds of millions. But Ashley didn't know any of that. To her, I was just some guy who worried too much about paperwork and slowed down her vision of frictionless international engagement. So I watched. I documented everything. I didn't correct her when she posted photos of our secure facility on Instagram with captions like "Defense Industry Vibes," or when she used unsecured Wi-Fi networks for video calls that contained classified technical specifications. I stopped being her safety net. That's the hardest part about being the invisible guy who prevents disasters. You're usually the one holding everyone together, but eventually, even the quiet professionals decide to let someone fall. The real problem started when Ashley began systematically removing me from the communication networks I'd spent 15 years building. She called it streamlining our international relationships and reducing redundant oversight. What she was actually doing was cutting the safety lines on a bridge while standing in the middle of it. She eliminated me from the European coordination emails first, then from the NATO update calls that kept me informed about security requirement changes, then from the weekly briefings with the German technical liaison team. The same people who remembered me from the Stuttgart exercise and specifically requested my involvement in sensitive projects. I found out I'd been excluded from a crucial pre-meeting with a German advanced security team when I tried to access the conference room and discovered my keycard had been deactivated. Through the glass, I could see Ashley presenting to a room full of people I didn't recognize, waving her hands enthusiastically while they sat stone-faced and silent. After the meeting, she found me at my desk. "This is the future, Andrew. You can focus on whatever local security stuff you handle while I manage the big picture relationships. I prevented this company from getting raided by federal investigators 2 years ago," I said quietly, referring to an incident where a contractor had accidentally included classified propulsion data in a public research proposal. She blinked. Was that really that big a deal? That's when I knew she didn't just misunderstand my job. She fundamentally didn't grasp what we were dealing with. During planning sessions, she talked over people with alarming confidence, throwing around phrases like operational efficiency and streamlined protocols, which don't actually mean anything when you're dealing with classified military contracts, but sound impressive when you say them fast enough. During a video call with Colonel Heinrich Wagner's advance team, she called their security requirements a bit excessive for modern business practices. The screen went silent. Then someone on the German side muted their audio and never unmuted again. I pulled her aside after that call. "Ashley, those aren't suggestions. That's federal law. You might want to be more careful about how you phrase things." She smirked. "I don't do careful, Andrew. I do results. You handle the paperwork, I'll handle the relationships." Right. Nothing like explaining military contract law to someone who once had to coordinate submarine maintenance schedules during a NATO crisis exercise. The problem started small. Delayed responses to our security questionnaires. Cryptic will review this further messages. The German liaison team stopped responding to emails in full sentences. Ashley took this as progress. "They're just adjusting to our direct communication style," she said. That direct style was slowly burning every bridge we had. She didn't notice that the German team had started copying their own legal department on every reply. She didn't realize that excluding people like me from security calls was like trying to perform surgery while blindfolded. You can poke around, but eventually you're going to hit something vital. So I documented every meeting, every security violation, every time she mishandled classified information or replied, "Sounds good," to emails that required detailed security protocols written in formal diplomatic language. I didn't intervene. I stopped being the buffer between her arrogance and federal regulations. Because the thing about being invisible is that nobody sees you until it's too late. And Ashley was running full speed toward a cliff, arms wide, convinced she was about to fly. The day I stopped covering for Ashley was the day she called my security briefings paranoid military stuff. Not outdated, not excessive, paranoid. We were reviewing protocols for the upcoming delegation visit. Colonel Wagner's team wasn't just coming for a handshake and coffee. They were conducting a full security audit of our facilities, our personnel, and our data protection systems. One mistake could cost us every European defense contract for the next decade. I'd spent months preparing a comprehensive security plan, complete with classified handling procedures, personnel clearance verification, and communication protocols that had been approved by both the Pentagon and German Defense Ministry. Real documentation that had taken weeks to coordinate between multiple agencies. Ashley glanced at my folder. 6 months of work layered with federal requirements and international security agreements, and smiled like I just handed her a child's drawing. "Yeah, this paranoid military stuff is exactly what we need to move away from," she said, setting the folder aside and opening her laptop. "I've got a more engaging approach planned." She used the word engaging about security protocols for officials who still used codes that dated back to the Cold War. So I made a decision. Not dramatically, not with some big speech, just a quiet adjustment behind my eyes, the kind you only notice if you've been watching long enough to know what military discipline looks like. I was done protecting her from her own incompetence. From that moment on, I would document everything and let the consequences teach her what 15 years of experience couldn't. Instead, I focused on Kenneth Brooks, my junior coordinator. Sharp kid, 28 years old, former Army communications specialist who understood that one security violation could destroy careers. I started giving him access to my reference files, walked him through the protocols not written in any manual, the exact procedures for handling officials whose careers depended on maintaining operational security. We met in my office between meetings, going over classification levels and handling procedures. Remember, I told him, these people don't just represent foreign governments. They represent foreign militaries. Every word they say, every document they see, every photo that gets taken, all of it goes into intelligence files that get analyzed by people whose job is protecting national security. Kenneth nodded seriously. He'd served in places where operational security wasn't academic theory. It was the difference between missions succeeding and people dying. Meanwhile, I began consolidating my files. Thousands of emails, security briefings, annotated protocols for every procedure Ashley was about to ignore. I backed everything up, encrypted the drives, and stored copies offline. Not because I planned to disappear, but because I knew soon the people in charge would need a roadmap back to reality. The incident reports alone filled 3 separate folders. Ashley posting facility photos on social media with location tags. Ashley discussing classified contract details over unsecured phone lines. Ashley forwarding internal security assessments to her personal Gmail account for easier access. Each violation documented with timestamps, screenshots, and witness statements from other employees who'd tried to warn her. Then came the delegation announcement. An official German defense team, Colonel Wagner himself, plus 2 technical specialists and someone who wasn't listed on the original manifest, a federal security auditor trained to detect violations across multiple agencies and flag them for prosecution. The invitation had been routed through my security channels, but Ashley intercepted it like she was claiming a prize. "I'll handle this," she announced to the board. Time to show them what modern defense partnerships look like. The executive board met that afternoon. Ashley pitched herself as the face of next-generation military relations. She said it was time to move beyond legacy security theater and make an impression that reflected our innovative approach. I sat 3 seats down, watching the room nod along like they understood what any of this meant for federal compliance. These were smart people, successful business leaders, but none of them had ever coordinated with foreign military intelligence or dealt with classification systems that could land you in federal prison for decades. The board chair, Frederick Gray, finally looked at me. "We'd like you to handle the technical security requirements, Andrew. Make sure everything runs smoothly behind the scenes." I nodded. "Understood, sir. I'd seen real authority before. Military authority, federal authority, the kind that comes with actual consequences and security clearances." But Ashley's confidence was something different. Pure, unfiltered belief in her own importance, untouched by any understanding of what could go wrong. But I didn't feel anger anymore. I felt focus. Surgical, military-grade clarity. The kind I only felt when I was seconds from preventing a crisis mid-flight. The kind I felt in Bahrain when our regional commander went missing during a joint exercise, and I had to coordinate directly with NATO command using encrypted satellite communications while hostile forces were actively jamming our primary channels. You don't raise your voice during a storm. You just secure your position and wait. So I prepared. I printed copies of the German team's security requirements and highlighted every protocol Ashley's engaging approach would violate. I reviewed federal regulations and noted which violations carried criminal penalties. I pressed my dress uniform, the one with ribbons that told a story about serving something bigger than quarterly profits. The Navy Achievement Medal for the Brussels incident. The Joint Service Commendation Medal from the Stuttgart Communications exercise. The NATO Medal for Service in operations that never made the evening news but kept Europe's military networks secure. I wasn't going to save her. I was going to stand in the room when she lit the fuse and then calmly walk through the smoke. They arrived in 3 black SUVs with government plates. No fanfare, no corporate logos, just the quiet efficiency of people who don't announce their authority because they don't need to. Colonel Wagner stepped out in a uniform that looked like it had been pressed with military precision. The other officials followed with the kind of bearing that comes from knowing exactly how much power they represent. Ashley adjusted her blazer like she was meeting venture capitalists. She kept checking her reflection in the glass doors, muttering something about owning the conversation. I stood near the entrance in my service dress uniform, ribbons visible, posture automatic after years of military bearing. Colonel Wagner's eyes found me immediately. A slight nod. Recognition. Not friendship, but acknowledgement between professionals who understood protocol. "Mr. Foster," he said in accented but precise English. "Good to see you again." "Colonel Wagner, sir. Welcome." Ashley stepped forward with arms wide and a smile that belonged at a networking event. She had clearly prepared what she thought was an impressive introduction, but missed a crucial detail that anyone with 5 minutes of research would have caught. She extended her hand to Colonel Wagner and said, "Colonel, so excited to meet you. Can you introduce me to the decision-makers on your team?" The temperature in the lobby dropped 10 degrees. Colonel Wagner was the decision-maker. He was the senior officer, the head of the delegation, the man whose signature could approve or kill our contract with a single word. Nobody corrected her, not with words. Just a glance between Wagner and his security auditor. Noted, logged, filed. Ashley didn't even see it. She led them toward the conference room too quickly, too casually, clicking her wireless presenter like a game show host. The presentation launched on the wall-mounted screen. Bright colors, animated transitions, stock photos of handshakes and global connectivity. Ashley had used the NATO logo without permission and displayed a German flag that was oriented incorrectly, a detail that might seem minor to civilians but represents either profound ignorance or deliberate disrespect to military personnel. Then came her opening line. "Our vision is to revolutionize your military procurement processes with American efficiency." I watched Colonel Wagner's face. No expression change, just the slight tightening around his eyes that meant he'd heard enough to form an opinion. Ashley continued, "We'll provide the framework to modernize your traditional approaches using proven Western methodologies." She might as well have suggested they replace the Bundeswehr with a tech startup. The German military has been successfully defending their nation and contributing to NATO operations for decades. They don't need a 26-year-old with an MBA explaining efficiency to them. Colonel Wagner leaned toward his aide and whispered something in rapid German. Not textbook German, but regional military dialect I recognized from my time at the Stuttgart facility. Ashley kept clicking through slides, completely unaware. "This is the person they assigned to lead our discussions?" Wagner murmured. "Where is the coordinator from the Brussels data incident?" His aide responded quietly. "He is present. She is presenting instead." Wagner paused, his voice taking on the tone officers use when they've reached the end of their patience. "This is unacceptable." I kept my eyes forward, didn't react, just listened. Ashley wrapped up her presentation with a flourish. "And that's how we'll transform your defense procurement into a 21st century success story. Questions?" Colonel Wagner simply said, "We need a moment to confer," and stood. The German team moved to the windows, not speaking English now, letting their silence grow heavy in the room. In military culture, silence isn't awkward. It's judgment in progress. Ashley leaned toward me, whispering, "They're probably just processing how impressive this is. The innovation probably blew their minds." I didn't respond, but I noticed everything. The way they shifted into tighter formation. The way Wagner's tone had gone from diplomatic to final. Something was being decided, and no amount of corporate enthusiasm was going to change it. Ashley checked her phone, probably planning her social media post about the successful international partnership meeting, and I sat there, watching storm clouds gather while she remained completely oblivious to the lightning about to strike. The silence stretched for exactly 3 minutes. In military time, that's an eternity. It's long enough for experienced officers to reach consensus without speaking a word. Finally, Colonel Wagner turned back to the table. His face was stone, his voice carrying the weight of formal military judgment. "Ms. Cooper," he said, each word measured and final. "This presentation demonstrates a fundamental misunderstanding of our requirements, our capabilities, and our authority structure." Ashley's smile wavered. "Oh, I'm always open to feedback. What would you like to see adjusted?" "Nothing can be adjusted," Wagner replied. "This approach is unacceptable for classified military procurement." The room went dead silent. Ashley blinked, her confidence finally starting to crack around the edges. "I don't understand," she said, her voice smaller now. "We're offering you cutting-edge solutions." Wagner's aide opened a tablet and began reading from notes they'd taken during the presentation. "You misidentified the delegation leader. You used NATO logos without authorization. You displayed our national flag incorrectly. You suggested our military systems require American correction." Each point hit like a hammer blow. Ashley looked around the room for support, but the board members were studying their hands. "Those are just minor details," Ashley protested. "The big picture is what matters." "In military contracts," Colonel Wagner said with ice-cold precision, "there are no minor details. Every element reflects competence, security awareness, and respect for our sovereignty. That's when Ashley made her fatal mistake. Instead of apologizing, instead of acknowledging the problems, she doubled down. Look, I understand you're used to more traditional approaches, but this is how modern business works. We need to move past these outdated formalities. The words hung in the air like smoke from an explosion. Colonel Wagner stood slowly, his aide and security auditor following suit. "Ms. Cooper," Wagner said, "you just called the security protocols of a NATO ally outdated formalities. This meeting is concluded." "Wait!" Ashley jumped up. "You can't just leave over a misunderstanding." "There is no misunderstanding," Wagner replied. Then he looked directly at me. "Mr. Foster, we will speak with you privately." The room erupted in nervous shuffling. The board chair, Frederick Gray, cleared his throat. "Perhaps we could reschedule." "No," Wagner cut him off. "We will speak with Mr. Foster. Ms. Cooper is dismissed from this discussion." "Dismissed?" Ashley's voice cracked. "I'm leading this project." "No," Wagner said with military finality. "You are not." Security had to escort Ashley from the room. Through the glass, I could see her pulling out her phone, undoubtedly calling her father. Wagner closed the door and turned to me. "Mr. Foster, the Brussels data protection incident. Your coordination?" "Yes, sir." "Worked with your technical team and NATO security to contain the breach before classified submarine specifications reached hostile intelligence. Outstanding work. We specifically requested your involvement in this contract." "I was informed, sir. Unfortunately, my role was reassigned." Wagner's security auditor spoke up for the first time. "We've been monitoring this company's social media presence. Ms. Cooper has posted photographs of your secure facilities, including classified project workspaces." My blood went cold. That was a federal crime. "When?" I asked. "Last week. Instagram story tagged with location data. The photos showed classified defense contract documents on conference room screens." Wagner opened his briefcase and pulled out printed screenshots. There was Ashley's smiling selfie with our secure conference room in the background, classified project names clearly visible on the wall-mounted displays. "This violates federal security regulations," the auditor continued. "We are required to report this to appropriate authorities." I looked at the photos. This wasn't just incompetence anymore. This was criminal negligence that could expose our allies' defense capabilities to foreign intelligence services. "Sir," I said, "I'll need to file an immediate security incident report." "Already done," Wagner replied. "Federal investigators will be contacting your company within 24 hours. For the next 2 hours, we conducted the meeting properly. In German when necessary, following every protocol, treating classified information with the respect it deserved." Wagner's team was thorough, professional, impressed with our actual capabilities once they were dealing with someone who understood the stakes. As they prepared to leave, Wagner shook my hand. "We will recommend contract approval. Under your coordination exclusively." "Understood, sir." "And Mr. Foster?" "That young woman should not have access to classified information, ever." I nodded. "I'll ensure that through proper channels." The elevator doors opened as they departed. Christopher Cooper stepped out, followed by our head of legal and the board chair. His face was grim, aged 10 years in the past 2 hours. "Andrew," he said, his voice hollow. "My office. Now." The legal team had already been briefed by federal investigators. Ashley's security clearance was immediately revoked. Her access to all company systems terminated. The photos she'd posted constituted willful disclosure of classified information, a federal felony carrying up to 10 years in prison. "She's my daughter," Cooper said quietly, slumped in his chair. "But she's also fired, effective immediately." "Sir," I replied, "I'll coordinate with the federal investigation and ensure our security protocols prevent future incidents." Cooper nodded. "The contract?" "Approved under my supervision." The German team was satisfied once proper procedures were followed. 6 months later, Ashley was working for a social media marketing company, posting about wellness journeys and finding authentic purpose. Her LinkedIn bio no longer mentioned defense contracts or global strategy. The federal charges were reduced to misdemeanor security violations with 2 years probation, mostly because her father's legal team convinced prosecutors she was too incompetent to be a real espionage threat. "I'm still here, coordinating defense contracts, speaking German when necessary, and making sure people who don't understand consequences don't get access to information that could compromise national security." Kenneth Brooks got promoted to Deputy Security Coordinator. He understands the weight of the work. Colonel Wagner sends me a card every Christmas, written in German. Professional standards matter, they do indeed. Sometimes you don't need to destroy someone's career. Sometimes you just need to step back and let them do it themselves. The rules exist for a reason, and eventually, reality enforces them whether people believe in them or not.